Bet on Bears fans, another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the Designer Hayes is in the building from Chicago Bears Central. Ladies and gentlemen, had to get my brother on the show. I'm sure that you have seen us do a multitude of shows together, and we got a lot to get into on today's episode because, Hayes, for the first time, dare I say maybe in our lifetime, I'm not going to be quoted on that because I can't remember all the way back, but at least as far back as I can remember, the Chicago Bears are in a spot as far as offensive line rankings that we have never seen them in, being Bears fans, a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. We got to break down, do we actually think that's going to happen this season? And some of the reasoning behind it may be interesting, especially with Braxton Jones included in that. Also, want to look at kind of where we see Ryan Poles' offensive line evaluation. Did he magically get better? All that and more on today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. We do want to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by the Advantage Auto Dealer Group. Find your next Chevy, Toyota, or Acura and drive off in under 60 minutes so they'll make your first car payment. Also brought to you by the Hard Rock Casino in Northern Indiana, Las Vegas style gaming. Just 30 minutes from Soldier Field, exit 6 right off of I-80 94. Hayes, what's going on, my boy? How you feeling, Brody?
I'm feeling pretty good. Good to talk about some positive Bears stuff. So that's always a good feeling.
This is uncharted territory for, dare I say, any Bears fan that has been out there. I mean, like, offensive line conversation, 15 is all we ever hope for. We're like, listen, if we could be 15, we got a chance to keep our quarterback from being sacked 68 times. Except last season, looking at that, to this season, seems like there's a drastic jump here. I'm just going to go through because we don't have to go down 30 names here. Number 1 offensive line in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles. No surprise there. Tackles on that team are dominant with Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. Denver Broncos coming in 2. Maybe a little bit of question there at 2, but I do like the Denver Broncos offensive line. 3, the Buffalo Bills. And coming in at 4, the Chicago Bears. Not only are they a top 5 offensive line, but they're being rated inside the top 5 at 4. What it said here on PFF, things are set to look a lot different in Chicago. Not only is the offensive line remodeled, but it's also perhaps the most improved unit in the NFL. Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, who both finished among the 22 highest graded offensive tackles in 2024, were already a promising young duo. Now the unit has 3 new interior starters who represent immediate upgrades. Trade acquisition Joe Thuney was the best pass blocking guard in the NFL in recent years, and free agent center Drew Dalman ranked among top 5 at his position in PFF overall grade in each of the past 2 seasons. If right guard Jonah Jackson can stay healthy and get back to his old form, this can be one of the NFL's top offensive lines. I want to start with you with the tackle group here, Hayes. Do you agree with the top 5 ranking with what we've seen from Braxton Jones in our time? I've said this many times on this show. I think he's got a cousin up there, maybe a Dontarius Jones, maybe a John Jones up at PFF, because the PFF grade does not match often what we see on the field. Do you feel like this is a fair ranking, knowing the question marks that we have at left tackle?
I think so. And I think it is mainly because, Braxton Jones hasn't been great. He's definitely not as bad as what some Bears fans make him out to be. He's not as bad and definitely not as good as what the PFF grades will tell you either. That's why the eye test is there. And I think there's a reason to believe that Braxton can be better with better vets next to him, and I think that's going to help him. But there's also a guy there in Ozzy Trapilo that I tell you what, I feel very confident about if he ends up winning that starting tackle position. And so while the doubt around Braxton is there, I think you said the same thing before. I know I've said it on my show. Braxton Jones' ceiling is Ozzy Trapilo's floor. So as you look for that's a big reason, even with Braxton there, to still feel confident about that left tackle position. And Darnell Wright, when you look at what Darnell's been through in both coaching, the failure there, as well as the people next to him on the offensive line, I think Darnell Wright is going to have a really big, impactful season this year with having that vet on the side of him.
The one thing that I've said is that if you look at the tackle position, right, there's been no stability at the guard position next to him. I mean, the question marks around the right guard have been massive, which is why we got to have the conversation around Ryan Poles, right? But I think even when you look at where Braxton Jones has been, with Tevin Jenkins being in and out of the lineup, right, that is a tough situation to deal with. Now, do I think that that's the reason why Braxton has struggled. No, I think Braxton Jones exposed himself to the world when he said, I struggle with the bull rush, and everybody from here to the other side of the planet is going, okay, well, we're going to bull rush Braxton Jones because it doesn't seem like he's improved upon that. But with all that being said, I truly believe having Joe Thuney next to Braxton Jones, having that stability, having one of the guys who you can count on is not only going to give Braxton so much more confidence if he does win this job this season and goes into the season as the starting left tackle, but I think it improves his game, not only in the pass blocking, but for sure in the run blocking game. And that's something where if I'm looking at the rest of my offensive line and I feel confident about it, Braxton Jones being an okay left tackle all of a sudden becomes something you can be okay with.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to word it there, is because Braxton, he hurts you in some areas. The bull rush, of course, the penalties, which he's gotten slowly but surely a little bit better on the penalty side of things. But having those veterans, that trio of veterans on the interior defensive line, if that doesn't raise up the standard and the expectations of the players on the outside, then I don't know what we're talking about. So Braxton being okay, him being serviceable, I think is going to be fine this year. But I still have a lot of confidence in that Ozzy kid. I think by the end of the season, he's going to be the starter there.
Yeah, Ozzy Trapilo. And the other thing you got to look at with Braxton is the health, right? We talk about that rookie season with Braxton. It's like, oh, he's an Iron Man. Well, last couple of years, he's been out there just as much as Tevin Jenkins has, quiet as is kept. We don't talk about it with him as much because usually you'll see him try to get back out there and things like that. But like, Braxton has not been the healthiest over the last couple of seasons. So I think that does play into this as well. I'll say this as far as the ranking. I like the ranking, but probably for a different reason. When you start to look at the tackles in the NFL, to me, I don't think you're talking about having 45 great tackles. I don't even know if you're talking about having 45 good tackles in the league, right? Like, there's only 32 teams. Like, to me, you've got your top 10 to 15 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it kind of starts to fall off after that, which is why when I look at, you look at the tackle rankings that PFF put out. I mean, the obvious guys, Jordan Mailata, Tristan Wirfs, who just went down with injury, seems like he's going to miss some time this season. Rashawn Slater, Trent Williams, Lane Johnson, Panay Sewell, Christian Darrisaw. And then, I mean, at 8, we're at 8. Laramie Tunsil. Is Laramie Tunsil still the same guy?
That feels like that's a reputation ranking there, because it's like, not to say he's bad, he's not bad, but I don't know if he's that guy anymore.
Here's the thing, right? A guy that I did want the Bears to take at one point, Paris Johnson, is already in the top 15. I don't think Paris Johnson has had a great season yet. I don't think he's had a top 15 season yet. And so to me, like when I look at that, I think that the focus around good offensive lines comes from the interior. And what the Bears have done with the interior, Drew Dalman, Jonah Jackson, Joe Thuney, I think you can have an argument. Now, we got to see it on paper, or not on paper. We got to see it on the field, I should say. But I think you can have an argument that is going to be one of the better interior 3 that we can see in the league, with Darnell Wright standing on that opposite side. I mean, when you look at the Eagles, they don't even have a great interior 3. You've got Juergens, you got Dickerson, and you got Steen. Steen's kind of like the guy that just fits in. He's like, well, I got Lane Johnson over here. I can't F up that much.
Yeah, I think the interior, that's where it can be special at, is that you not only have veterans on that interior, you have productive veterans, and veterans who've done it for a long time. The biggest question mark that I have on the interior of the offensive line for the Bears now is Jonah Jackson going to stay healthy? Which it's not like he's had a long time of not being healthy. It really was just last season where he missed the most games. But that's the one question. As long as this interior offensive line can stay healthy, like you have a standard setting interior offensive line there. And I go on to say this, you have one of the best in the NFC North as far as the balance between the run and pass blocking that you have there. And that's why even with the offense and the running backs, right? Like I say this, with a great offensive line does more with a so-so running back than what a great running back would do behind a so-so offensive line. And so when you look at the expectation for the Bears even running game to be better than what it was last year, a big part of that is because of the way that we have transformed that offensive line, and you got the guys in there now can run, can pass block, and it really opens up what the Bears can do and gets them in a place where they can be more creative, because you can't be creative offensive play calling wise if your offensive line can't do anything. And we've seen as many plays as we saw last year with everybody on their back. We shouldn't see that this year.
Listen, that speed option at the goal line still haunts me, bro.
Bro,
Like,
that was still a terrible play call, bro.
that's one of the worst.
Everybody should have been fired that day, bro.
Bro, how did they continue to make it, bro? Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Speed option at the goal line. I loved how my favorite thing last year too was like when I asked, I think he ran another stupid play like in week 7 or 8. And I asked him about like, is there any reflection? Like, what's going on with that? And he's like, oh yeah, listen, I know what you're talking about. You talk about that speed option on the goal line. Bad play. It was like, so it's a bad play. Like, you see this. So, let me ask you this with the offensive line coming into this season. Jonah Jackson, I think, is probably outside of Braxton Jones, one of the bigger question marks here.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is he coming off an injury, he's also dealing with not being a right guard.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one part that, as much as we can love this and feel like, oh, this is going to be great, Jonah Jackson has not played a ton of right guard. Now, he has practiced there. He prepared for it when he was in his time in LA, when the center position didn't work, and they kind of just ended up benching him because we had a better option there. Are you concerned at all with the fact that Jonah Jackson is coming into this situation not having played this position and having to figure it out kind of on the fly? Like, you don't get the opportunity of like one of these rookie guys was like, we'll give you the grace period. You got the money, you got the contract. Ben Johnson is your guy. You got to be a solid player here early on. Or do you kind of feel like this could be a Eagles situation where Steen is not great? He's okay, but he's not great. But you got a great tackle on the opposite side of him, as well as a really, really good center in Juergens in the middle there. And that kind of offsets maybe the struggles that he may deal with.
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be some struggles, I think, just as far as maybe not sure. Maybe there's going to be some humps he's going to have to get over. But I think that Jonah Jackson is good in his fundamentals to where he can really play anything. I think even, last year with the injury and things like that, like I think he's going to be fine there because he's just a guy that just gets it done. I think his job is relatively the same. He's a veteran, so he understands the technique that needs to be used there. So there's going to be a bit of a curve there. But I trust Jonah Jackson. It's just the injuries that I'm worried about. Injuries and the depth, because when you start talking about who's behind our starters, which I don't know if we're going to get into that, that's where you start having more question marks. But as far as Jonah Jackson being at right guard, I'm not too worried about it. Maybe I should be more worried than what I am, but I'm not too worried about it.
Let's go into that, right? You talk about the depth on this team. I think that is a conversation that you do have to have about kind of where this team is now. Oddly enough, at the left tackle position, a position that we've had the most question marks, that's where I feel the best about the depth on this team. When you look at some of those other spots, though, you quickly get back to the offensive line we had last year, though. Like, I mean, it's real. Like, if we start to see guys go down, it's like, this looks familiar. Are you concerned at all about how depth has been addressed? Or do you feel good knowing that some of these pieces that ended up being starters were perfect depth pieces? I just don't want to rely on you for 17 games.
I think that's what it is. I think that we had people that were starting that were better off as depth pieces. I think Bill Murray, who I think he played pretty well, and when he got, I feel confident in him as a depth piece. We're not going to have him every down there, but I feel confident in that. Ryan Bates, a little more shaky, but still as a depth piece, I have some confidence there also. Luke Newman, another rookie offensive lineman that we drafted that we haven't talked a lot about, him and Doug Kramer and Ricky Stromberg there too. That's going to be the backup center. They're going to be competing for those snaps. I have some confidence there. So I think it's some, but it can go quickly to, all right, how can you factor it as a depth to if there is any injuries where anybody got to miss 2-3 games and you got to rely on those guys to be starters, that's where it starts getting a little shaky. And there's so much confidence also in Kieran Amagaje, who, I mean, maybe under the right coaching staff in the second year leap and step or whatever else. But I tell you what, in seeing him last year, he looked like a deer in the headlights almost every snap he was out there. So I'm a little bit worried about that too.
I think it's so interesting. You look at last year's offensive line to finish the season. The Bears finished the season 24th in offensive line ranking. It's insane to think that there were worse offensive lines than us. Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, Matt Pryor, and Darnell Wright. Essentially, you have swapped out the entire interior of this line, and it has jumped you, according to PFF, 20 spots to start the season. Now, the Bears started the season last year 11th in offensive line with some of the projections that they had out there. Ryan Bates was a big part of that projection. I love the fact that now Ryan Bates gets to be exactly what he should have been brought here as, a backup. Like, I like Ryan Bates. I think he's a really good swing guy. I think he's somebody who really can step in and play some spot starts for you at the center position. You don't want to rely on this dude. And I think that goes into the conversation of, some of Ryan Pohl's evaluation, what we saw last season, where there was a ton of belief in Ryan Bates being that guy. like being the face of it. And I remember Tevin Jenkins talking to us to start the season, Hayes, and he was like, yeah, he's kind of like the leader in the locker room. That was just one of the scariest quotes I had gotten out of training camp and preseason, because I was like, well, he's not on the field. How's he one of your leaders? Just from an upgrade position here, do you feel like the Bears have finally figured it out and gotten it right with this offensive line?
On paper, yes. Now, we are Bears fans through and through, so we've seen a lot of situations on paper that look good that end up not being good. But I think on paper, like the investment that he made in both draft capital and in money spent, or in extensions and trades and things like that, this is probably the most we've ever spent in an offensive line in one offseason ever. So you better be confident that this is enough to transform that offensive line, because you've spent and you've actually invested in the trenches enough to where you should expect a way higher output than what you got last year. So this is the first year that we really made a true investment and long-term investments too, especially with the contract extension. So you better be, because you've basically locked yourself into this version of your offensive line outside of whatever happens with Braxton Jones and Ozzy Trapilo, but you've locked yourself into this version of it. So it better work out, because if it doesn't, Ryan Poles, yet again, you can't keep getting the offensive line wrong.
Yeah, I think that, like, when you look at the evaluation that has been here, first off, the question marks are massive. But in one offseason, and maybe you credit it more to Ben Johnson than you do Ryan Poles, we've seen more investment in the offensive line than I've lived to see. Yeah. We being honest here, like, we've seen more real investment in this offensive line than I have been alive for. And I wasn't here for the 85 Bears. I wasn't here. I mean, like, Olin Kreutz is probably the last time we saw this level of investment. I guess I was alive for that, but that's kind of like me starting to figure out, Bears are a football team, and this is fun to watch. The Bears haven't focused on the offensive line at this level in so long, and it just feels like, to me, and maybe this is the Bears fan in all of us, where we're kind of hesitant to see, okay, is this actually who this team is? We got to see it not on paper. You got the best center that was on the market, in my opinion, last season. You got the best guard in football, if we're being honest, in Joe Thuney last season. I know he's older. We're concerned about the age. He's been healthy his entire career. I would think that that's probably going to continue in some fashion heading into this season. And you added a guy in Jonah Jackson who I think there's a ton of upside in, and at a minimum, you feel good about the tackle and the center standing next to him. You feel like you can move with that. This is one of those things where, and I said it about kind of the offseason as a whole, if you don't have confidence in this, there's nothing you can have confidence in. Like, you literally went out and got the best, in my mind, that was available to you at just about every position, and you drafted some pieces, like you said, that you're high on at that left tackle position in Ozzy Trapilo, and seeing what some of the backups could be with the rookies that you brought in.
Yeah, I mean, the investment part of it is I have to commend Ryan Poles for recognizing where he's gone short at. We've pieced together an offensive line through hope and wish through the last couple of years, right? And God wasn't listening. And then the hope came crashing down. He wasn't listening. So now
God wasn't listening.
God wasn't listening, bro. The prayer, God wasn't listening. So now that you've gone in and you've made that serious investment in it, and you've got not just taking chance on players, you went out and got guys that are all pro or near that, and that have performed and done this for years. And that's what you want when you're trying to get your offense to a place where you're looking for them to start executing right away. What do? Do you draft people that you have to hope they're going to take time to learn it, or do you get veterans in here who have gone through so much they can adapt to any system? And that's what Ryan Poles went out and did. It's expensive, yeah, but guess what? It was worth the investment. You got rookies all up and down your offense as far as the weapons. You got players on decent contracts all up and down. So this is where you need to make that investment, and hopefully this is a sign that now Ryan Poles understands why that is so needed, because he has dropped the ball for the last couple of years on the offensive line. So going out there, getting these investments, making this happen, going out and getting a guy like Joe Thuney, who, like you, I've seen the same thing on the comments on his age. I tell you what, you go tell Joe Thuney to his face that he's old, and then tell me how you feel afterwards.
Listen, Joe Thuney is one of those guys where you got the guy who is everything you needed at the offensive line that I think they were trying to hope Ryan Bates became. Mm-hmm. You got your leader on the offensive line, without question. You've got your number one guy. You've got a guy that is one with Tom Brady and has won with Patrick Mahomes, mentoring the quarterback that you hope turns into one of those guys, being a part of that system. Like, these are the moments where going out and getting the veteran help doesn't hurt you. You went out and got the guy that is perfect for the kind of quarterback you're trying to develop. And that's why, to me, like, this season, I understand it's season 2, but it's going to be very pivotal in my mind, and I think in a lot of people's minds, on, okay, who is Caleb Williams really? Is he somebody you can win with, or is he somebody that you win because of?
Yeah.
With
That's a
this
great
setup,
question.
with where this is at, and we got to see how the season plays out, right? A lot of people felt good about Coleman Shelton coming into the season, when I was like, I don't know about Coleman Shelton, but we'll see. But, like, to me, a guy like Drew Dalman coming in, best who was available to you. We saw how he played last season, did a really good job in the run game, a little bit worse in the passing game, but still was able to make it work. Like, if this doesn't work, I think you come out of the season looking at Caleb Williams a little bit sideways, saying, dog, like, it's not them. They can all play football. We saw it last year. It might be you.
Yeah, I think the way I always explain it on my show is that every offseason, the job of the front office is to try to eliminate as many questions as they can. You're not going to eliminate all of them, but as many questions as you can. When you're trying to evaluate a quarterback, you want to eliminate the question on the protection they have. You want to eliminate the question of the weapons they have, and you want to eliminate the question of the coaching and play calling. The Bears have basically done just about all of that in one offseason. You got to commend them for it. They already had Rome and DJ here. You went out and got 2 slot receivers that are going to thrive in being in the slot in Olamide and in Luther Burden. You went out and got, specifically for Ben Johnson's system, Colston Loveland to help Cole Kmet and be that 12-man personnel, which is great for a quarterback that's looking to build their confidence, to have check downs, all those type of things, to play it safe a little bit at times. And you have now a scheme that is built around just getting the ball in the hands of your playmakers and letting them go to work. Yards after the catch is going to be one of the identities of this Bears team on the offensive side of the ball. Caleb just has to get them the ball. And I don't want to oversimplify it. Like, Caleb has to take a step up in his way he processes, attacks down the field, and his accuracy and holding on to the ball. Those are things that he needs to work on. But the Bears have aided that development by going out and getting what they've gotten on the offensive side of the ball, and the people who are going to be in his ear calling the plays this year.
And I would almost say this, though, like, we live in an NFL now where, not to say you want to live with it, but you do live with your quarterback holding onto the ball some. You have no choice, right? You look at Pat Mahomes, you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at guys like that, guys who do get rid of the football quickly when they need to get rid of the football, but guys who at times go, no, I'm going to make this play. Like, I think there's going to be some of these sacks we look at this season where they're going to come. If Caleb is in the 28 to 35 range in sacks, basically cutting the sacks in a quarter or in half, like, you kind of can look at those and go, I would say probably half of those are on Caleb Williams, or maybe even more than that. And you can feel good about that coming out of this season and feel good about the offensive line that you have. But to me, the statement now is, can you get Caleb to hit the ground quick enough to where this offensive line makes an impact like you needed to see? And can the offensive line help Caleb get there? And what I mean by that is, there are going to be plays early on in this season where it's going to be, Caleb, you got to get rid of the ball.
Yeah.
But if he's continuously not getting rid of the ball, it's going to make the offensive line look bad. It's going to make us look at the offensive line very differently. People are going to be sitting there going, oh, Drew Dalman's got to hold his block longer than that. When really it's, no, that ball should have been out an hour ago, and Caleb Williams held on to it. They have to have that simpatico relationship, or not simpatico, symbiotic relationship. And that's one we just didn't see develop last season, where, yeah, there were some plays where the offensive line was absolutely horrid. There were also some plays where Caleb Williams contributed to how horrid the offensive line looked in the season.
Absolutely. And I think, too, Caleb, too, there were times last season where I think the record games that without throwing an interception, he was trying to keep that up. And you can't do that. You can't worry about that type of thing. You got to go out there and win football games. Now, I know that the state of the team last year was in a very bad state after like week 6, and that just is what it is, right? Yeah. But you got to see that growth and that maturity from Caleb. That's why the things that have come out so far, that like Ben Johnson's coaching him hard. He's taken to that coaching really well. Hearing him and Ben Johnson just sitting down, having lunch together, talking football. I love that type of stuff. And that could seem like just narrative things where it's just good rah-rah to hear in the offseason, but those are things that help that curve. And you have to have a relationship as a quarterback and a head coach that you're able to be real and honest with each other. And that goes both ways. And I think they're building that. And so hopefully any type of hurdles that come up, they're able to have an honest conversation about it. And Caleb takes to it well and then goes out and does it. The thing that I always love to do in all the sports that me and you cover is that when a player says something, I love that because now I can hold you accountable to what you said you wanted for yourself. Not what fans have said, not what some analysts have said that wanted to label you generational. I can hold you to what you said that you wanted for yourself. Yeah. Caleb wants to be great. He wants to be judged by Super Bowls. And so if you want to get there, that means that you have to add something or refine something in your game every single year. Period. You can't get by. And I think last year was a big wake-up call for Caleb that there's a lot of talented people in the NFL who didn't make it. You can have all the talent in the world and not make it. There has to be more than just that raw talent. And hopefully that was that wake-up call that Caleb needed, and now he's going to come in here and really attack it this season.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that plays into the interception record last year and even holding the ball a little bit to Flus being here. I know some people always look at it. I mean, Pat, you can't blame everything on the coach. Listen, I watched Flus do it with Justin Fields. I watched Flus do it with Caleb Williams. It was the same conversation. Don't throw interceptions. Go get me 2 touchdowns, and we'll find a way to win this game. They didn't win it. They almost never won the game in those situations where you saw the quarterback put you in a position, do exactly what the coach said. Ben Johnson's not going to be that guy. Ben Johnson's going to say, take that chance, throw that football. The play is there. You got to make the play. You got to be on time. And that's what I mean about being a quarterback that you win because of, not a quarterback you win with. Sometimes there's going to be plays this year where Caleb Williams throws the football and it's between 2 defenders as they're closing, and you go, it's maybe not the best throw to make, but it gets there. And there's going to be other times where it's like, make the best throw, make the easy play, make the play that's going to make this offensive line feel comfortable and get them in a rhythm and get down the field. And those are going, that symbiotic relationship. That's what Caleb, where you look at Caleb, where you look at this offensive line and you say, that's the part that has to develop very early on. And hopefully we see that come quickly. Where are you feeling right now? And I want to ask you this, ask the audience this as well. Let me know in the comments below. We saw an offensive line last season. I think both of us came into the season and we were like, okay, we'll see how this goes. Mm-hmm. Now we see an offensive line that is ranking top 4 in the NFL. Where do you feel the evaluation of Ryan Poles is at with the offensive line? Do you think that it improved because of Ryan Poles? Do you think it improved because of new people in the building and Ryan Poles is just going to get the be a benefactor of that?
I think if we're shooting it fair, it's a combination of both. I absolutely think that Ben Johnson, and looking at the important, like, he understands the importance of having a good offensive line for what he wants to run. I think he communicated that to Ryan, but I also don't think that Ben Johnson's going in there saying organizing trades. I think that's Ryan Poles who went out there and identified between the deals and the trades of how to go out there and get the guy. So I think in a perfect world, you want it to be a balance between both. You want your coach to be able to say, hey, this is the type of guy I want, and your GM to say, all right, bet, I'm going to go out there and get that guy. So I think that having a coach that, you can trust because they've had success, even though not as a head coach, it goes a longer way in now trusting what they communicate that they want. I don't think if Matt Eberflus went to Ryan Poles and said, yeah, I want this, and this guy, Ryan Poles would be like, oh, okay, thanks, Matt. Now, anyway, what were we doing? Like, if Ben Johnson comes in the room and asks for something, you take a little bit more seriously, right? So I think that plays a part into it.
Yeah, it's the conversation on kind of where this team was at. I truly wonder how much Matt cared about the offense.
Yeah.
Like, I truly wonder because, like, I remember being in training camp last year and just going, okay, like, no one's blocking. So clearly you have to invest. You need to go find a center. You don't have a center that can block. And it just was like the mindset of Matt Eberflus continued from his entire time here. It's good enough. We will make the defense make it work. And at the end of the day, good enough wasn't good enough. I don't think that's the expectation here with Ben Johnson. And the part that I love that I can't wait to see at training camp is the back and forth between him and Dennis Allen and him and Dan Rashar and him and Eric Bieniemy and right, all of these pieces that you've brought in, him and Al Harris, all these pieces that you've brought in where everybody seems like they want to be the guy. They want to be the best. Dennis Allen and Ben Johnson have already gone at it a couple of times just on some, don't let that ball get through easy. No, like you got to make that stop. You got to make that pass, right? Like, this is dare I say, a relationship where the competitiveness will push this team to be better inside the building. And we just didn't see that last year. When Shane Waldron missed the play, we missed the play. I will run another one. I got one for you. Like, you didn't have that competitor. That was it. Like, that was honestly all it was, dog.
Yeah. Yeah, the Bears may not lead the league in wins, but I guarantee you they led the league in that's on me. That's on me. And then nothing happened. It was just that's on me. That's on me. But I think what Ben Johnson has done is that he surrounded himself on offense with people who see the game as creatively as he does. Declan Doyle could be the next Ben Johnson. And you probably gave him you hired him as an offensive coordinator maybe a year or two too early, right? But what that's done is that means that if somebody's going to come in and try to snatch him away from you, they're going to be trying to make him a head coach unless you're going to let him go to take a lateral move. But I think Declan Doyle's a creative offensive mind. We got Eric Bieniemy as our running backs coach, but he's going to be in that room, right? And then you look at the players former players that we have on our coaching staff, and then having Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen is as creative as a defensive mind as Ben Johnson is as an offensive mind. And those two guys going up against each other in practice and in training camp and those type of things, I hope that breeds the best environment for all these players to grow, because you're not getting somebody on the opposite side of you that's just like, oh yeah, that's on me. No, they're going to take that personal, and they're going to try to come out and scheme to where they don't get taken advantage of again.
Man, I'm telling you, you saw it already at minicamp and OTAs. Like, they are that's on me's don't happen. My favorite thing is, and I keep telling this story, is, Ben Johnson yelling at Caleb Williams saying, "You weren't mentally ready to run that play."
That's crazy. That's crazy.
What you just said. Your brain wasn't in the right place for you to run that play based on how I heard you call the play out.
Where were your antennas when we was calling the play?
That's something that we're so not used to, and I think that's what I'm so excited for Bears fans to see at training camp. And hopefully, as a Bears fan, we do get to see that at training camp, where it is the mentality of the good enough is not good enough. Yeah, and it's what I love about it, and what you continue to see. It doesn't feel like showmanship for the media. It doesn't feel. This just feels like who Ben Johnson is. My favorite, one of my favorite things is DJ Moore coming and saying, like, they talk to me about my body language, and I think what somebody basically asked, like, but isn't that just kind of your demeanor, your personality? He's like, it doesn't matter. I won't do it again. Like, those are the things, those are the standards that I think the Bears being held accountable to is going to elevate everybody in the building at Hallis Hall. And getting back to the offensive line, I think it elevates that too. Like, that's why this top 4 ranking to me is not crazy, because you've got a guy. I think not only do you have the coaches, Hayes, but you've also got the players who are willing to walk in there and say, no, that's not the standard, though. The standard's up here. You got to get up here. If you don't get up here, we're going to leave you back there because we need people that are meeting the standard. I think having a Joe Thuney elevates this team so much, not just the offensive line, but the offense as a whole.
Yeah, I think having those guys, Drew Dalman, Joe Thuney, those are guys that their voice is going to be heard in that locker room. Their voices are going to be heard in that huddle, and they're going to make sure that they're heard, because if they're not, they're going to get in your face about it. And not in like a toxic way, but in if we want to be great, we have to be able to hold each other accountable. And that's one thing that everybody said in the locker room coming out of it. That's why they wanted a leader of men. But there was a lack of accountability with the Bears overall last year, because everybody was just trying to fight for their own, like just to keep their own sanity. Now it's one band, one sound, and hopefully now we can finally start laying that groundwork and that base, so we can start building off of it and do something sustainable over some time, and not just have the 2 years where we're like, hey, that was fun. 5 more years of sucking. That's what we got now. So
that was crazy, and a drum line.
It was a bar. It was a pause, but I'm doubling down on it. It is what it is.
Hey man, we appreciate y'all for tuning in and showing love. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. Hayes, we appreciate you jumping on the show as well. Let the people know where they can find you at, my boy, and where they can tune into all the content at.
Absolutely. You got 5 minutes now. You guys can follow me personally if you wanted to at CEO Hayes. You can check out my Chicago Bears podcast, Chicago Bears Central. We're a daily podcast 7 days a week. You can also check out my Bulls podcast, Chicago Bulls Central. We're also 7 days a week. Basically, I'm dropping a lot of content. If you want to check out me and Pat doing this more often, a little bit more free, Locked On Bulls is where you can follow me and Pat. We cover the Bulls every single day together.
Yeah, man. Stay tapped in with us, man. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. For Hayes, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. What are your thoughts on the offensive line? Let us know in the comments below. Do you feel like they are top 4? Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down. One love.